Welcome to Public Speaking with Peter George. Do you want to be calm, confident, and credible every time you speak in public? Then stay tuned as Peter and his guests discuss public speaking tips, techniques, and tactics that help you increase your impact, influence, and income. Here's your host, Peter George.
My guest this week is Baer. Let me tell you a little bit about Jay and some of his accomplishments. He's one of fewer than 200 living members of the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame and has also been inducted into the Word of Mouth Marketing Hall of Fame. As a speaker, Jay has given hundreds of insightful, humorous presentations worldwide. He has been an advisor to more than 700 companies, including 34 of the Fortune 500. He founded and runs Convince and Convert, a digital strategy consulting firm. He is the host of the popular Social Pros podcast, as well as the weekly Talk Triggers show. On top of all that, and a lot more, Jay is a New York Times bestselling author of 6 books, including his latest, Talk Triggers, which he wrote along with Daniel Lemon. Here's my chat with Jay Baer. Welcome, Jay. Great to have you with us.
Peter, delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, we'll be talking about speaking in a few minutes, but before we do, can you share with our listeners the idea behind the book that you wrote along with Daniel Lemon called The Talk Triggers?
Yeah, Talk Triggers is a book about making an unconventional choice, about making a decision to do something different consistently and doing so that your customers notice that difference and talk about it. Because it doesn't matter if you're in the speaking business, the consulting business, the car sales business, the photography business, the cosmetic surgery business, it doesn't matter. The best way to grow any business is for your customers to grow it for you. But that requires word of mouth. And I think we all know how important word of mouth is in the speaking business and beyond. The challenge, though, Peter, is that everybody takes it for granted. Our research suggests that fewer than 1% of businesses have an actual strategy for word of mouth. Everybody else just sort of assumes that their customers will talk about them, but will they? Like, are you giving them a story to tell? Typically not. And the mistake that gets made is that businesses believe that competency creates conversation, that if you just run a good business, people will notice that and talk about it, but they expect you to be good. That's not really worth a story. So the Talk Triggers book and the formula and the system that we've created shows you how to come up with your own operational differentiator that your customers routinely discover and then tell other people about, and that gets you new customers subsequently.
Well, it makes perfect sense. And if you think about it, if all it did was take us to be competent, and if we went in and worked with someone and did a great job, we'd never have to market ourselves if it worked that way.
Right. There would be no such thing as advertising.
Exactly.
And actually, competency works maybe less than ever as a marketing construct, because customers in every business expect more than ever, right? Customer expectations continue to ratchet up. So if you're going to say, well, our marketing plan is basically to just be better than our competition, boy, you better be awful good, because your competitors are probably good too, and customers expect more today than they did last year and the year before and the year before. So that's a tough treadmill to live on.
Yeah, it's the old adage that you could go out there and say, hey, we're good at what we do, but your competitors aren't going out there saying, hey, we suck at what we do.
That's it. Yeah. And the thing is, if they were truly bad, they wouldn't be your competitors, right? They wouldn't be in business at all.
Exactly. I know our listeners will benefit from reading your book or listening to it. I know I did.
Tons of applicability for speakers. I've talked to a lot of speakers about the Talk Triggers system and how, one of the things that's true in the speaking business now, more so than it used to be, is that A, there's more speakers because it's, the best gig in the world. And B, consequently, speakers are viewed, I don't want to say this in a negative way because it's not intended to be negative, but speakers are viewed as somewhat of a commodity to meeting planners and as somewhat interchangeable. There's a bunch of good marketing speakers, there's a bunch of good sales speakers, there's a bunch of good leadership speakers, there's a bunch of good communications speakers, and if you want to be something other than just one of the speakers in that category, you kind of need a talk trigger. You sort of need a thing that is your thing that meeting planners notice and talk about. And so while the book Talk Triggers wasn't written specifically for speakers per se. It is most definitely applicable to speakers.
Well, in my own business, in training speakers, I know it's worked for me. While I was reading your book, an idea came to mind, and I played with that idea a little and changed it a little bit. But once I implemented it, lo and behold, I found my clients talking about it and sharing the information.
There you go. Unsolicited testimonial.
Unsolicited, and I got to thank you.
It works.
It works.
Thank you. I have one as well. I have a talk trigger as well, which is I always wear crazy plaid suits on stage. That's my thing. I've had plaid suits all the time. I've got lots and lots of plaid suits. So my talk trigger is called dressjbaer.com. So when meeting planners book me to deliver a program, they get access to the website, dressjbaer.com. And when they go there, they can pick what suit I'm going to wear on stage. And then it shows up on my calendar so I know what to pack and bring with me. And it's great because as soon as you get off that plane, boy, they're like, that's the suit that I thought you were going to wear. That's the one I picked. And they love it and they tell their friends about it.
And it gives them something to talk about.
Gives them a story to tell. That's what it's all about.
That's fantastic. Along with being an author of 6 books, I believe?
Yeah.
You run Convincing Convert consulting firm, and you're a member of the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame. Now, I'm not trying to embarrass you at all, but being inducted into the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame, that's pretty rarefied air, isn't it?
It is a tremendous honor for a couple of reasons. One, there's 187 living members of the CPAE Hall of Fame, so it's not a very big group. And two, the only way you can get into the Hall of Fame is to be voted in by the living members. So it's not as if there are members of the media who are voting on it, or meeting planners or speakers bureaus. It's 100% your peers. So that makes it really something quite special, and a tremendous honor. One of the best things that's ever happened to me, really.
And I got to believe that being inducted into any Hall of Fame isn't something that happens overnight for anyone. It has its own trials and tribulations as you're going through the career. And way back when, what made you get into the speaking business?
It was strange. I had, I guess I was kind of a speaker for a long time, but didn't realize it. I was certainly never afraid of the microphone, even back in high school when I was just like a sophomore in high school. I was the guy that they always said, well, we need somebody to MC the talent show. Like, Jay will do it. He's not afraid. And so I did a lot of that kind of stuff younger, and then even in college. And then when I got out of school, I sort of became a digital marketing consultant very, very early when the internet really was first developed. And so as a result, I knew a lot of stuff that a lot of people didn't know because nobody had ever seen the internet before. So I did a lot of kind of presentations at local organizations, Chamber of Commerce and Rotary and that kind of thing, and never really thought of it as a career. And then I met a good friend, Kelly McDonald, who's a very successful professional speaker. She and I worked together on the consulting sides of our respective businesses. And she said, you should think about doing the speaking thing more because it's actually a job. And I said, is it? How does that work exactly? And so she sort of taught me the business and kind of showed me the ropes. And not too terribly long after that, I wrote my first book and did a book tour and did a whole bunch of different presentations. I was like, wow, I really like this. And people seemed to think I was fairly good at it. And sort of one thing led to another. And, 1,000 speeches later, here we are.
Well, how did that help you with your consulting firm, getting up in front of targeted audiences?
It actually works both ways. So on one hand, what I deliver as a speaker is timely and relevant and frankly true, because the things I'm speaking about are things that I actually do every day with some of the most iconic brands in the world as a consultant. And then conversely, being out there in front of so many audiences, primarily business audiences, raises my exposure and creates leads for the consulting firm. So it's sort of a symbiotic relationship. But I tell you, the consulting business is not the easiest business in the world. Of course, neither is the speaking business. But every time I think, boy, this feels like an awful lot of work, I think, geez, yeah, but would I really want to be a speaker, especially somebody like me who really talks about marketing and customer experience? Would I really want to be on stages all around the world talking about that if I didn't have a consulting firm and didn't have sort of an experimental lab to learn lessons that I can then deliver on stage?
Would you suggest that our listeners who are consultants look at the opportunities to speak in front of groups and maybe fill their pipelines and have some of the same, luck's not the right word, just some of the same results that you've had over the years?
Yeah, I think you have to think about it as a flywheel, right? So what I do in social media and via my podcasts and other content that I create, books, that piece of it creates speaking opportunities, and speaking opportunities creates leads, and leads creates consulting engagements, and consulting engagements teaches lessons that then get circled back into the content of the speeches. So the whole thing is really a circle, and if you can get your circle figured out, you'll be in pretty good shape.
I always look at it as the people that you're speaking in front of, some of them will self-select.
Oh, of course.
Just say, hey, I'm a prospect. They're not going to use those words, of course, and I might like to work with you. Can we talk?
Yeah, and it's a small number, right? I mean, and that's okay, especially because our firm really specializes in doing consulting for large brands, and so in any given audience, there may be 1%, 0.5%, no percent. I don't want 200 people coming up to me after a speech and saying, "Hey, can you help us?" Because the answer is going to be no. Now, there are certainly speakers who have terrific back-end training programs or video courses or other things like that that's really designed to help small business or solopreneurs tackle some of the themes of their speech. I don't do that. That's not really my thing. I never have really been down that road. I probably leave a lot of revenue on the table subsequently, but I would like if I can get 3 solid big company leads out of every speech, we're in great shape.
I think anybody would be happy to get 3 leads and 3 prospects standing in front of them saying, let's talk, let's see if we can do business and you can help me with my problem.
Well, the funniest thing about it is on the speaking side, right? So, the great truism in the business, and it sounds hopelessly pat and perfunctory, but it's 100% true, is that the more you speak, the more you speak. And it doesn't really matter what the audience is or how much you're getting paid, because some percentage of every audience will be in a position to hire you as a speaker at some point in the future. The challenge that a lot of speakers have, though, is they don't have enough runway to get to that point in the future. I mean, it happens to me all the time. I don't mean it's happened to me before. I mean, it happens to me all the time that somebody calls and says, "Hey, I saw you speak 7 years ago at this thing, and I've subsequently been promoted twice, and now it's my turn to pick speakers, and I would really like you to come do something for our organization." That happens all the time. Now, that's a 7-year sales cycle that I didn't even know was happening, right? So sometimes you just have to understand that the speaking business is just like the music business, right? You start off playing for nothing, and then you play for beer money, and then you play for $50, and then you play for 100 people, and then 300 people, and then 500 people, and it's pretty rare. It happens in the music business, of course, but it's pretty rare that somebody just instantaneously gets big, right? It's the old saying, right? Took you 10 years to become an overnight sensation.
That was one of Bob Seger's quotes. I played in gyms for years, and I was a 20-year overnight success.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
In terms of speaking, if you were to start over, and of course it's always 2020, right? But if you were to start over, is there anything you'd do differently?
Oh, sure. Of course. Yeah. I mean, I would have started earlier. Like I did not give my first paid speech until I was 38 years old, which is pretty late for a lot of people who kind of make a career out of it. I never thought it was going to be a career until later, right? So I would have started earlier. I would have gotten coaching earlier, right? I still spend a lot of money every year on coaching and getting better and being as good as I can be. And I've done that a lot for the last several years. I would have done it even earlier. I would have spent more time and money on video earlier, right? So I think I'm doing most things right now, but it took me a while to get to the point where I was doing things the right way, and I probably cost myself a few years of success just by not getting that all figured out faster.
Hopefully your sharing that will help people who are in the same situation as you were way back when, and help them get there a little quicker if it's meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, I should have had a talk trigger earlier, right? I mean, who knew?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we all should have had success earlier.
Yep.
It comes along, of course. It's just the way life works. What part of speaking is your favorite? What gives you the greatest high, if you will, from it?
That's a great question. I don't know if I've ever been asked that in that way. I would say there's times when, kind of hard to even describe it, there's times when you just know that you have them because I do a fair bit of customization and help being a consultant. You sort of think that way, right? So I do a fair bit of customization, and I have a pretty loose style, more of a master of ceremony style. Like I use a handheld instead of a lav and things like that. And it's pretty funny. And so I work spontaneously at some level as well. And when you sort of do those things where it's not super duper rehearsed, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna riff this, or I'm gonna add a story here that I didn't expect to add, or I'm gonna comment on something that happened in the moment in the room, and you just look out there and you just know that this audience trusts you completely, and you can take them wherever you want to go for the rest of this program. Right. Or, I did one a couple of weeks ago where it was like a 90-minute keynote, which is always a tough assignment, right? That's a long time to keep your energy up. And I was at minute 85 and I just took a beat and I looked out there and nobody was on their phone. Nobody was whispering. You could have heard a pin drop. And I was like, okay, that's a good job. We're 85 minutes into this and these people are locked in. That's the part that I like the best, where you're like, you know what? I've got it figured out. In the moment, that's the part I like the best. The part I like the best ultimately is this. My good friend Rory Vaden says this all the time. I don't know if he invented it, but he always tells me this, that a speech is nothing but an advertisement for what's possible.
I love that.
And what I love the best is when people email me and they say, hey, you came and gave a keynote to our association, whatever, months ago, and you talked to us about talk triggers, and just like you started the call with today, I heard what you said, and I put it into practice, and it's totally fixed my business, and I'm making all kinds of money. That's what I like the best, right? Because just going up there and entertaining people for an hour is super fun, but if they're not making money, saving money, or both, then what's this about? I'm not in the fine arts business. I'm not a professional comedian, right? I'm a consultant who happens to be a good speaker. So what I really care about is that people's trajectory changes based on what I taught them. Yeah, I want it to be entertaining, of course. But ultimately, if I'm not teaching you something, then this whole thing is just kind of silly, isn't it?
It's nice to see when you've made a difference in someone's life.
Yeah, and I don't want to overplay it, right? I'm not curing cancer here, right? It's a speech, but it is nice when somebody gives you the feedback and says, hey, literally my business is different because of what you said. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's worth getting out of bed for sure.
Right. And I've always believed if you can help them in their business, well, maybe that helps them in their personal life. Maybe they have greater revenue. Maybe they have greater profit and they can do something they've always wanted to do. Now, for our listeners, what's the number one suggestion you could give them overall on their journey of becoming more effective speakers?
Speak about fewer things. Scott McCain is a legendary speaker, is in the Hall of Fame, inducted me into the Hall of Fame. He was the one who I chose to introduce me, has mentored me for many, many years. And he told me something once that I never forgot, and I'll pass it along now. He said, good speakers have 9 topics. Great speakers have 2. And that is really true. right? If you can give a speech about anything, you probably can't give a great speech about anything.
That's right.
So, like figure out what you're really good at and do that thing over and over until you're really, really good at it and sell that thing. Instead of being like, yeah, I can give a talk about sales or marketing or pottery or, healthcare or, because, practice makes perfect, right? So I think that's when I see people trying to break into the business, that's usually what I see is that their topic is too broad and not differentiated enough, right? It's got to be something that meeting planners can say, yeah, they really have it dialed in this particular circumstance. So you got to realize you're competing against hundreds of people.
Oh, yeah.
Thousands of people maybe, right? So you've got to have it figured out.
Again, why you?
Yeah. I mean, what are you the best in the world at, right? And if you don't know the answer to that, then your topic's probably too broad.
I believe if you don't know the answer to that, no one will know the answer to that.
Oh, yeah. They're not going to be able to infer it from your website magically. Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, Jay, you're a wealth of information, as I'm sure our listeners can deduce from just listening to you, and you're very successful, you're well respected, and I'd love to continue this conversation, and perhaps you'll come back and join my listeners and me on another show.
Oh, I'd love to.
I would really appreciate that, and I'm sure my listeners would too.
I'd be delighted to.
Before you go, how can our listeners learn more about you, Talk Triggers, and the other services you provide?
Yeah, two options. Talktriggers.com is the website for the book and the video show and all the things we do about Talk Triggers. There's tons of free resources there, by the way. I would love for you to buy the book, but even if you don't want to, we've got videos and infographics and research and discussion guides and PowerPoint presentations, and everything is at talktriggers.com. You'll love that. And then my site is jbaer.com, Baer, all the stuff that I do, blog, podcast, speaking, all that jazz.
And they'll get to see you in a plaid suit.
You will. Several different ones, most likely.
Well, Jay, thanks so much. I wish you the best, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
That's a wrap of another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tune in Monday when you'll hear another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George, and again Thursday for your next episode of Quick Bites, public speaking tips and techniques you can digest in 5 minutes or less. Until next time, remember, when it comes to speaking in public, you've got this.